You are lying still, perhaps already wrapped in the soft edges of sleep. When the idea arrives gently, there is a language inside you. It does not announce itself. It does not demand attention. It has been there longer than memory, longer than thought, quietly doing its work. You are not required to understand it yet. You only need to notice that it exists. Inside your body, beyond sensation and movement, every cell carries a message. Not a spoken one, not something shaped by breath or sound, but a written pattern, steady and enduring. It is copied again and again, faithfully, like a lullaby repeated through generations of cells. This language does not hurry. It has all the time it needs. You imagine shrinking, drifting inward, moving past skin and bone and blood, until you arrive at a single cell. It is not empty or chaotic. It is busy in a calm way, like a quiet room where meaningful work is always happening. At the center, protected and folded with care, lies the script. Long strands, coiled and resting, holding instructions that know you deeply. This alphabet is older than you. It existed before your name, before your first thought, before the shape of your body was decided. It waited patiently, carried forward through countless lives, until the moment came for you. When that moment arrived, it began to speak not in words, but in actions. Divide here. Grow there. Become this. Rest now. You do not feel it working. Most of the time, you are unaware of its presence. Yet it is always active, like breath during sleep. Every cell follows the same quiet guide, reading the same symbols, interpreting the same patterns. Together, they create you, moment by moment, without asking for your attention. The language is made of only 4 letters. That fact might seem surprising, almost too simple. 4 shapes, 4 chemical forms, repeating in long sequences. And yet, from this simplicity comes astonishing detail. The curve of your fingers. The rhythm of your heart. The way your eyes respond to light. All of it begins here, in this small, silent alphabet. You let yourself wonder how something so minimal can hold so much meaning. It feels like listening to a single note transform into a melody through repetition and timing. The letters do not change, but their order does. Their spacing. Their rhythm. Meaning emerges not from complexity, but from arrangement. As you rest with this thought, your breathing slows. There is comfort in knowing that life does not require excess to be profound. It requires care, patience, and continuity. The genetic code carries these qualities naturally. It does not rush to explain itself. It simply continues, steady and reliable. You picture the letters lined up, one after another, forming long sentences that stretch across generations. Some of these sentences are ancient, shared with creatures you have never met. Others are more recent, shaped by chance and time. All of them are written in the same alphabet, using the same 4 symbols, over and over. This quiet consistency is soothing. It suggests that beneath the noise of the world, beneath daily change and uncertainty, there is something stable. Something that remembers how to build a living thing. Something that has done it before and will do it again. The language does not judge. It does not worry. It simply follows rules shaped by chemistry and time. When conditions are right, it opens itself and allows a copy to be made. When the copy is complete, it closes again, protecting the original message. This cycle repeats endlessly, like waves arriving at shore and pulling back again. You may begin to feel a sense of trust forming. Not trust in perfection, but in persistence. The alphabet inside you has survived errors, disruptions, and vast stretches of time. It has learned how to continue despite imperfection. That knowledge is written into its structure. As you drift further into this inner landscape, you realize that you are never truly alone. Every cell carries the same quiet script, the same inherited wisdom. They are all reading together, responding together, cooperating without discussion. Your body is not a single voice, but a chorus, all following the same sheet of music. The idea feels gentle and expansive. You are not required to manage this process. You are not responsible for its precision. It happens for you, not because of you. Even now, as you rest, the letters continue their work, ensuring that balance is maintained, that order is preserved. You return to the image of the alphabet itself. 4 letters. Simple, unassuming. They do not try to impress. They do not change their shapes. They remain what they are, trusting that arrangement will do the rest. There is a lesson here, one that does not need to be spoken aloud. Perhaps simplicity is not a lack, but a foundation. Perhaps depth does not come from adding more, but from using what is already there with care. The genetic code seems to understand this intuitively. It builds endlessly without becoming complicated. As your thoughts slow, the idea settles into you like warmth. This language inside you is not separate from you. It is you, at a level deeper than thought. It is the quiet continuity that carries you from moment to moment, breath to breath. You do not need to memorize its letters. You do not need to decode its sentences. Tonight, it is enough to know that it exists, steady and faithful, whispering instructions that keep you whole. And as you rest with this awareness, another question begins to form, soft and unhurried, waiting patiently for the moment when you are ready to meet the 4 letters themselves. As the quiet alphabet continues its steady repetition inside you, you begin to sense that its power does not come from complexity at all, but from how much can be said with so very little. You rest with the idea that a language lives inside you, and slowly, gently, it begins to reveal its symbols. There are only 4 of them. No more. No hidden characters waiting in the shadows. Just 4 chemical letters, repeating in quiet patterns, over and over, across time. At first, they feel almost underwhelming. You might expect more. More variety. More decoration. But the longer you sit with them, the more their restraint begins to feel intentional. These 4 letters are not ink or sound. They are shapes of molecules, small and precise, fitting together like pieces of a familiar puzzle. Each one has a name, but tonight, names are less important than presence. What matters is that these letters exist, and that they are enough. Together, they form the foundation of every living thing you have ever known. You imagine them as smooth stones, worn by time, each with a slightly different texture. Alone, a single stone does not say much. It simply rests. But when placed beside others, patterns emerge. Paths form. Structures appear. Meaning grows not from the stones themselves, but from how they are arranged. This is how the genetic alphabet works. The letters do not change their nature. They do not become more elaborate as life becomes more complex. Instead, they repeat. They sequence themselves in long chains, sometimes millions of letters long. And within those chains, information quietly lives. You let your thoughts drift outward. These same 4 letters appear in the cells of trees, instructing them how to stretch toward light. They appear in birds, guiding the formation of feathers and hollow bones. They appear in whales, shaping lungs that once learned how to breathe air. And they appear in you, arranging cells into thoughts, memories, and breath. There is something humbling in this shared simplicity. The difference between you and a blade of grass is not the alphabet itself, but the stories written with it. Like a book written using the same letters as every other book, life distinguishes itself through sequence, not substance. You begin to sense how this works. 3 letters at a time are read together, forming small units of meaning. Each unit corresponds to an action, a building block, a quiet instruction. These instructions combine, layer upon layer, until complexity arises naturally, without effort or awareness. It feels like listening to music built from only a few notes. The notes repeat, but the melodies do not. A lullaby and a symphony can share the same scale, yet evoke entirely different feelings. The genetic code works the same way. 4 letters. Endless variation. As your breathing slows, this idea settles into you. Complexity does not require excess. It requires patience and time. The code does not rush to explain itself. It simply unfolds, step by step, trusting that repetition will do the work. You imagine the letters lined up along a strand, like lanterns glowing softly in the dark. Their order matters. A small shift can change the meaning of a sentence, just as rearranging words can change a story. But most of the time, the letters stay where they are meant to be, holding steady, reliable. This reliability is part of their power. Because there are only 4 letters, the system is resilient. It is easier to copy, easier to check, easier to protect. Simplicity makes endurance possible. The code can travel through generations without losing its message. You begin to feel a quiet respect for this design. Not a design made by intention or planning, but one shaped slowly by chemistry and survival. Over time, systems that worked continued. Those that failed faded away. What remains is not extravagant, but efficient. The 4 letters do not try to explain the whole organism at once. They work locally, giving small instructions that combine into larger patterns. One section guides the building of a protein. Another helps regulate timing. Another decides when to pause. No single part understands the whole. And yet, together, they create something complete. There is comfort in this. You do not need to know everything to play your part. Neither do your cells. They respond to what is near them, what is present, what is needed in that moment. Life emerges from cooperation, not control. As you lie with this thought, the world feels a little softer. The pressure to be complex, to be more than you are, begins to ease. If 4 letters are enough to build oceans and forests, perhaps enough is closer than you think. You picture the letters again, endlessly repeating, endlessly patient. They do not tire of their task. They do not grow bored. They simply continue, trusting the process they are part of. That trust has carried life forward for billions of years. This genetic alphabet is shared, but its stories are personal. The same letters that appear in distant galaxies of bacteria also shape the curve of your smile. Universality and individuality coexist without conflict. One does not cancel the other. You feel yourself drifting, suspended between scale and intimacy. Between the vast history of life and the quiet moment of now. The 4 letters connect these extremes effortlessly, bridging time without noise. And as your thoughts grow slower, another pattern begins to emerge. You notice that the letters do not appear randomly. They find partners. They match. They follow rules of attraction and balance, pairing again and again in a way that feels almost tender. Your body continues its quiet work, the letters aligning, separating, rejoining. And as you rest within this rhythm, you sense that the next part of the story is not about the letters themselves, but about how they reach for one another in the dark. With 4 simple letters repeating endlessly inside you, you begin to notice that meaning deepens not just through sequence, but through connection, and soon, you will watch how these letters gently find their partners, again and again. You settle into the idea that the letters inside you are not drifting alone. They do not wander aimlessly through the cell, hoping to be understood. Instead, they move with quiet certainty, guided by simple rules of attraction. Each letter knows which other letter it belongs with. Not through thought or intention, but through shape, chemistry, and balance. Pairing is not a choice here. It is a natural pull. You imagine the long strands of genetic code gently opening, like a book parting its pages. As the strands separate, each letter is briefly exposed, resting in the open air of the cell. For a moment, there is space. Then, without hesitation, a matching letter approaches and settles into place. The fit is precise, calm, unquestioned. Again and again, this happens. A quiet reunion, repeated countless times. There is something soothing about this reliability. In a world where so much feels uncertain, the genetic code rests on consistency. One letter always pairs with the same partner. No confusion. No debate. The system works because it does not ask for novelty. It asks only for fidelity. You let this rhythm sink into you. Pairing, separating, pairing again. It mirrors your breath, the rise and fall of your chest. Open. Close. Inhale. Exhale. Life continues through simple cycles, repeated patiently. This pairing is the foundation of trust within the cell. Because each letter knows its partner, the code can be copied accurately. When the strands separate, each becomes a template, guiding the formation of a new companion strand. The result is 2 complete messages, where there was once one. Continuity without loss. You imagine this happening deep inside you, even now. Cells dividing, quietly duplicating their instructions before passing them on. There is no spotlight on this process. No signal that it has occurred. And yet, it is essential. Without it, nothing would persist. The idea of pairing extends beyond mechanics. It carries a sense of balance. Each letter complements its partner, filling spaces, stabilizing the structure. Alone, a single strand would be fragile, vulnerable to disruption. Together, paired, the structure becomes strong and resilient. You may begin to notice how often life depends on such balance. Not extremes, but matching forces. Support. Reciprocity. The genetic code does not favor one letter over another. Each plays its role, equal in importance, inseparable in function. As your thoughts drift, you picture the paired strands twisting gently around each other, forming the familiar spiral shape. This twist is not decorative. It is practical. It allows long sequences to remain compact, protected, and manageable. Even here, beauty emerges from necessity. The spiral feels calming to imagine. A shape without sharp edges. Continuous, flowing, without beginning or end. It suggests that life is not built in straight lines, but in curves and returns. Patterns that repeat, but never feel rigid. You reflect on how pairing also allows for repair. If one letter is damaged or lost, its partner provides a reference. The correct information can be restored by comparison. This is not perfection, but resilience. The system anticipates disruption and prepares for it quietly. There is comfort in knowing that mistakes do not mean collapse. The genetic code is not brittle. It bends, checks itself, corrects where it can. Pairing is part of that safety net. A way of remembering what belongs where. You begin to feel the metaphor extend inward. Just as the letters rely on pairing, perhaps you too rely on patterns of connection to remain whole. Breath pairs with rest. Thought pairs with silence. Effort pairs with release. Balance is not static, it is rhythmic. The cell understands this instinctively. It does not cling tightly to one state. It opens when needed, closes when complete. The paired strands separate only when copying must occur. Once the task is finished, they return to their resting form, stable and quiet. You imagine this as a kind of trust exercise. Letting go, knowing reunion will follow. The letters separate without fear because the rules of pairing are dependable. They will find each other again. This dependability has carried life through unimaginable spans of time. Billions of years of copying, pairing, and preserving information. Through heat and cold, through radiation and darkness. The same simple relationships hold steady. You sense how deeply this rhythm is embedded in you. It shapes not just your cells, but the larger patterns of your body. Heartbeats. Sleep cycles. Hormonal waves. Life organizes itself through repeating, paired motions. As you rest with this awareness, your body seems to respond. Muscles soften. Thoughts slow. There is nothing you need to manage right now. The systems inside you know what to do. They have been doing it for far longer than you have been aware. The letters continue their quiet dance, pairing and repairing, ensuring that meaning is preserved. They do not rush. They do not linger. They move at the pace required, guided by physical laws that feel almost gentle in their predictability. You return once more to the image of hands reaching for one another in the dark. Not grasping, not searching wildly. Simply moving toward what fits. What belongs. This is how order emerges not through force, but through compatibility. And as the paired strands settle back into their resting spiral, another image begins to form. You realize just how much information is held within these threads, how long they are, how carefully they must be folded to fit inside such a tiny space. The question arrives softly, without urgency. How can something so long, so detailed, exist within something so small? As the letters rest together once more, paired and balanced, you begin to wonder how these long, delicate threads are folded and stored so patiently inside each microscopic cell. You stay with the question that has quietly opened inside you. How can something so long live inside something so small? How can an instruction manual that stretches for miles be tucked into a space you could never see with your eyes? The question does not arrive with urgency. It drifts in gently, like a curiosity you are allowed to hold without solving right away. You imagine the interior of a single cell. It is not empty. It is not crowded either. It feels organized in a calm, deliberate way, as though everything has learned how to make room for everything else. At the center of this space lies the genetic code, not stretched out, not tangled, but folded with extraordinary care. If you were to pull the DNA from just one of your cells and lay it out end to end, it would stretch far beyond your body. And yet, inside the cell, it rests comfortably. Not compressed violently. Not forced. Simply arranged. Coiled. Folded again and again, like a long thread wound patiently around invisible spools. This folding is not random. It follows patterns refined over vast stretches of time. The DNA wraps itself around small supporting structures, creating loops, then larger loops, then even larger ones. Each level of folding serves a purpose: protection, organization, accessibility. Nothing is hidden forever. Nothing is exposed unnecessarily. You picture a skilled hand winding thread, never pulling too tight, never letting it slip. The motion is slow and deliberate. This is how the cell treats its instructions. With respect. With awareness of fragility. With an understanding that this information must last. Space, you begin to realize, is not just about size. It is about arrangement. A small room can feel spacious if everything inside it knows where it belongs. The cell understands this deeply. It does not waste space, but it does not hoard it either. Balance is maintained quietly. As you rest with this idea, your own body feels different. Your chest rises and falls. Air enters and leaves. Even here, space is managed with care. Lungs expand, then release. There is room because movement creates it. Inside the cell, movement creates space as well. The DNA is not locked into one shape. Sections loosen when they are needed. A particular region unfolds just enough to be read, while the rest remains folded, waiting. When the task is complete, it gently coils back into place. This flexibility is essential. If everything were spread out all the time, the system would be vulnerable. If everything were locked away, nothing could function. The cell finds a middle ground. It keeps what is needed accessible, and what is not safely tucked away. You may notice how this mirrors your own experience of memory and attention. Not every thought is present at once. Not every memory is active. Most of what makes you who you are rests quietly in the background, folded away, ready to emerge when needed. The DNA inside you does the same. It does not shout its entire message all at once. It reveals itself in sections, responding to context, timing, and need. This is not chaos. It is choreography. You imagine the nucleus of the cell as a softly lit library. Shelves curve gently around the space. Books are not stacked haphazardly, but arranged so that the most frequently read volumes are easiest to reach. Others remain deeper in the stacks, preserved and protected, still part of the collection. The genetic code is stored in this way. Genes that are often used are kept in positions that allow quicker access. Others remain more tightly folded, waiting quietly. The cell knows which stories need to be told often and which only rarely. There is something deeply comforting about this restraint. Not everything must be expressed all the time. Potential can exist without urgency. Possibility can rest without pressure. You feel this idea settle into you as your thoughts slow. The world often feels crowded, demanding constant output, constant expression. But inside you, at the most fundamental level, information rests patiently. It waits for the right moment. The folding of DNA also offers protection. Tightly packed regions are shielded from damage. Looser regions are monitored carefully. The cell invests energy in preserving its instructions, because without them, nothing else matters. You imagine time passing. Hours. Days. Years. Through all of it, the DNA remains, folded and refolded, copied and protected. It survives heat, cold, scarcity, abundance. It has learned how to endure. This endurance is not dramatic. It is quiet. It does not announce itself. It simply continues, moment after moment, maintaining structure in a changing environment. As you breathe, you may notice how your body also relies on this kind of quiet organization. Bones support without effort. Muscles hold tension and release it. Systems operate without conscious instruction. There is intelligence in this arrangement, even without awareness. The idea of long threads in tiny spaces begins to feel less mysterious and more familiar. You see it everywhere. Roots winding through soil. Roads threading through cities. Thoughts weaving through silence. Life does not require endless expansion. It requires thoughtful folding. It requires knowing when to open and when to rest. Inside your cells, this knowledge is ancient. It is written into the way DNA behaves, how it coils, how it responds. The code does not panic about its length. It trusts the structure that holds it. You sense a kind of kindness in this design. Space is not treated as a problem to be solved, but as a relationship to be managed. Everything is given just enough room. As your awareness drifts, the image of folded strands becomes softer, almost abstract. Spirals within spirals. Loops within loops. Order nested inside order. And within all this careful organization, something remarkable happens. Despite the immense length of the code, despite the density of its storage, it can still be copied. It can still be read. It can still be passed on. This brings a new thought gently into focus. For something so carefully stored, copying must require an equally careful process. The strands must open without tangling. They must separate without breaking. They must be duplicated without losing meaning. You begin to sense the next quiet miracle waiting to be explored. How does something so long and so delicately folded manage to copy itself, again and again, without conscious thought? You rest with the image of long strands folded neatly inside a tiny space, and slowly, another process begins to unfold in your awareness. These instructions do not remain still forever. They are not stored only to be admired or preserved. At certain moments, they must be copied, passed on, repeated. And this happens without thought, without planning, without anyone inside you deciding that it is time. Deep within your cells, copying begins quietly. The paired strands you imagine before start to loosen their embrace. Not abruptly, not forcefully. They separate with care, like pages gently opening in a well-loved book. Each strand remains intact, holding its sequence steady, ready to guide the creation of a companion. You imagine the cell is calm during this moment. There are no alarms, no rush. Specialized molecules arrive, not as supervisors, but as helpers. They move along the exposed strands, reading the letters one by one, matching each with its correct partner. Wherever one letter appears, its complement settles beside it, fitting perfectly, as though it has always known where it belongs. This copying does not require understanding. No part of the cell knows why the instructions matter. No molecule understands the future body they help sustain. And yet, the process is astonishingly accurate. Billions of letters can be copied with barely an error. Faithful repetition, guided entirely by physical rules and quiet cooperation. You may notice how comforting this idea feels. So much of your waking life depends on effort and attention. Decisions, corrections, worry. But inside you, at the most fundamental level, essential work happens without strain. It is automatic, rhythmic, and reliable. The copying unfolds in stages. The strands separate. New letters arrive. Bonds form. The spiral slowly recreates itself. Two complete sets of instructions now exist where there was once one. The originals remain. The copies are ready to travel onward. Continuity is preserved. This is how growth becomes possible. Before a cell divides, it must ensure that both resulting cells carry the full message. Nothing important can be left behind. The act of copying is an act of care, ensuring that life continues without interruption. You imagine this happening again and again throughout your body. In your skin. In your blood. In your gut. Cells dividing, copying their instructions quietly, maintaining balance. You are constantly becoming new, even as you feel the same. The process is not perfect, but it is remarkably close. Very rarely, a letter is misplaced. A small error slips through. When this happens, the system does not panic. It notices. Other molecules check the work, scanning for mismatches, sensing when something feels wrong. Repair is part of the design. If an error is found, it is gently removed and replaced. The correct letter is inserted. The strand is restored. This happens so smoothly that you never notice. Mistakes are treated as expected possibilities, not failures. There is something deeply reassuring in this expectation of imperfection. Life does not assume flawlessness. It builds in forgiveness. It prepares for small deviations and equips itself to handle them calmly. As you breathe, you may feel a soft resonance with this idea. Perhaps you, too, are allowed small mistakes. Perhaps correction does not require alarm or self-judgment, but quiet attention and care. The copying process continues regardless of your awareness. You could be awake, asleep, dreaming, or distracted. It makes no difference. The letters follow their rules. The helpers do their work. The pattern continues. You imagine the cell during copying as a place of gentle motion. No sudden movements. Just steady progress along the strand. The work takes time, but there is no sense of impatience. Time itself feels cooperative here. The speed of copying is carefully balanced. Too fast, and errors increase. Too slow, and division would stall. The system has found a rhythm that works, refined over unimaginable spans of time. This rhythm is now part of you. You may begin to feel gratitude for this invisible labor. For processes that do not ask for recognition. For systems that protect you without requiring instruction. Your body is not passive. It is actively maintaining itself, moment by moment. As copying completes, the new strands pair with their originals. Two identical spirals form, each carrying the same alphabet, the same sequences, the same potential. The cell is now ready to divide, to share its contents, to continue the lineage. This sharing is generous. Nothing is hoarded. Each new cell receives what it needs to function. The instructions are not diluted by being copied. They remain whole, intact, and meaningful. You sense how copying without consciousness is one of life's quiet miracles. It allows continuity without memory. It allows identity without awareness. It allows complexity to persist without supervision. The more you sit with this idea, the more it softens something in you. The pressure to control every outcome eases. Inside you, systems thrive precisely because they are not overthought. Copying happens not just once, but countless times. Across a lifetime, your genetic code is copied trillions of times. And yet, it remains largely unchanged, stable, dependable. This endurance is not dramatic. It is methodical. You feel your thoughts slowing, settling into the rhythm of repetition. Copy. Pair. Check. Repair. Continue. The pattern feels almost like a lullaby, repeating without variation, without urgency. And within this repetition, something unexpected becomes possible. Because while copying aims for fidelity, it is not absolute. Very rarely, a change slips through and remains. A letter altered. A sequence shifted. Most of these changes do nothing at all. Some are harmful and fade away. But a few, just a few, persist. They are carried forward. They subtly alter the instructions. As you rest with this realization, a new curiosity begins to form. If copying is so faithful, yet not entirely fixed, what happens to those rare changes that survive? How do they shape the long story of life? As the quiet act of copying continues endlessly inside you, you begin to wonder how these rare, gentle changes born from repetition itself slowly shape the unfolding story of life over time. You notice how tiny variations slip quietly into the genetic code over long stretches of time. They do not arrive with drama or announcement. They appear softly, almost invisibly, as copying continues from one cell to the next, from one generation to another. Most of these changes are so small they leave no trace you would ever notice. Life continues, steady and familiar, as though nothing has happened at all. You imagine the genetic code as a long river flowing through time. Each moment of copying is like a ripple on its surface. Most ripples fade instantly, absorbed back into the steady current. Occasionally, a ripple shifts the flow just enough to matter. But even then, the river does not rush. It moves patiently, carrying changes forward at a pace so slow it feels almost timeless. These small variations are not plans or goals. They are not improvements chosen in advance. They are simply possibilities, appearing by chance. A letter changes. A sequence adjusts. Most of the time, nothing happens at all. The organism lives, grows, and passes on its code unchanged in any meaningful way. Sometimes, though, a change lingers. It fits well enough within the existing system that it is not corrected or removed. It becomes part of the message. This is not because the change is better, but because it is acceptable. Life is generous in this way. It allows variation to exist without judgment or urgency. You may feel how gentle this process is. Evolution is often imagined as dramatic struggle, but at its core, it is quiet persistence. Small changes accumulate only because copying continues and time allows them to remain. Nothing is forced. Nothing is hurried. Life does not push forward, it drifts, steady and responsive. You picture countless generations passing, each one nearly identical to the last. The differences are so subtle they could be missed entirely. And yet, over long spans, these small differences begin to add up. The river shifts its course not through sudden turns, but through patient erosion, grain by grain. This slowness is essential. Rapid change would destabilize life. Systems need time to adjust, to test what works and what does not. Slow evolution allows balance to be maintained while possibility quietly expands. It gives the living world room to breathe. Most changes do not survive. Some make the organism less suited to its surroundings and gently disappear. Others offer no advantage or disadvantage at all and simply drift along. Only a few, very few, subtly help life persist under certain conditions. These are the changes that remain. You imagine environments shifting gradually. Climate changes. Food sources vary. New challenges appear. Life responds not with foresight, but with presence. Variations that happen to fit the new conditions continue. Those that do not fade away. There is no intention here, only response. You feel a quiet respect for this process. Nothing demands perfection. Life does not rush toward an ideal form. It explores gently, keeping what works and releasing what does not. Evolution is not a ladder climbing upward. It is a wandering path across time. As you rest with this idea, your own sense of urgency may soften. Change does not need to be sudden to be meaningful. Growth does not require constant transformation. Sometimes, becoming happens so slowly it feels like staying the same. Inside your own body, These small changes are part of your deeper history. You carry variation shaped by ancestors who lived in different places, under different skies. Their small genetic adjustments remain with you, quiet echoes of long journeys and ancient environments. Yet evolution is not finished. It does not belong only to the distant past. Variation continues with every generation, with every act of copying. The future remains open, shaped by conditions that have not yet arrived and challenges not yet imagined. You notice how patient this makes life feel. There is no deadline. No final version waiting to be achieved. Only ongoing adaptation, unfolding across timescales far larger than a single lifetime. Life is comfortable with incompletion. The genetic code accepts this openness. It is stable enough to preserve identity, yet flexible enough to allow change. This balance allows life to persist without becoming rigid. Structure and possibility exist together, without conflict. You breathe slowly, feeling this balance reflected in your own rhythms. Stability paired with movement. Continuity paired with variation. You do not need to become something entirely new to change. Small shifts are enough. As this thought settles, you realize that evolution depends entirely on copying. Without faithful repetition, there would be no foundation. Without rare variation, there would be no change. Both are necessary. Together, they shape the long story of life. From these small changes, accumulated patiently, entire forms arise. Structures emerge. Behaviors appear. Bodies take shape. All of it begins with tiny differences layered gently over time, like sediment forming stone. You imagine the vastness of time required for this process, time measured not in years but in countless lifetimes. Each generation is a brief moment, yet together they create a deep history. The genetic code does not remember this history consciously, but it carries its traces forward, letter by letter. Some variations alter how proteins fold or how signals move through cells. Most effects are subtle, almost unnoticeable. A slightly different response to temperature. A small shift in how energy is used. These changes do not announce themselves, yet they quietly influence survival. You notice how evolution does not chase novelty. It does not seek constant innovation. It simply allows what happens to happen, then observes through survival what remains. The process is patient enough to wait for usefulness to reveal itself. This patience allows life to be conservative. Traits that work are kept for astonishingly long periods. Structures that succeed are repeated again and again. Evolution rarely discards something that functions well. It prefers to adjust, refine, and reuse. You feel comfort in this reuse. The world is not rebuilt from scratch with every change. New forms are layered gently on old foundations. The familiar remains present, even as new possibilities appear. As you breathe, the idea of slow change settles deeper. You realize that urgency is not required for meaning. Time itself can be a collaborator, smoothing rough edges and revealing what lasts. Evolution unfolds without awareness, yet its results feel thoughtful. This is not intention, but accumulation. The appearance of design arises from countless small survivals stacked quietly together. You let your thoughts slow, allowing this immense timeline to exist without needing to grasp it fully. It is enough to know that change is happening, patiently, continuously, even now. Within this patience, life finds freedom. Nothing is rushed, nothing is frozen. Possibility stays open, held gently by repetition and time, waiting for the moment when small changes are ready to become something more visible. You sense that visibility arrives when instructions finally move outward, shaping matter itself into form. This transformation waits quietly ahead in the journey. As small changes continue their slow, patient work, you begin to feel curious about how these quiet instructions eventually step forward, becoming the visible structures that form a living body. You rest with the sense that small changes have been drifting through time, shaping possibilities patiently, and now your attention turns gently inward again. Somewhere between silent letters and visible form, something remarkable happens. Instructions begin to take shape. The code does not remain abstract forever. At certain moments, it steps forward, becoming structure, substance, and motion. This is where language becomes body. Inside your cells, the genetic code is not read all at once. It would be overwhelming if it were. Instead, small sections are selected, like pages opened carefully in a vast book. Only what is needed in that moment is revealed. The rest remains folded, waiting quietly for its turn. You imagine a cell listening not with ears, but with sensitivity. Signals arrive from its surroundings. Temperature, chemical balance, the presence of neighboring cells. In response, the cell opens specific sections of the code and begins to act. This is how instructions move from letters into the physical world. The first step is translation. The word sounds technical, but the process is gentle. A copy of a small genetic segment is made, not to replace the original, but to be used temporarily. This copy travels outward within the cell, carrying a short message written in the familiar alphabet. It is like a note slipped quietly from a library into a workshop. In the workshop of the cell, tiny structures wait patiently. They read the copied message 3 letters at a time, matching each set with a specific building block. One by one, these building blocks are joined together, forming a long chain. This chain will soon fold into a protein, one of the fundamental working structures of life. Proteins are where instructions become action. They are shapes designed to do specific tasks. Some provide structure, forming the scaffolding of cells and tissues. Others act as messengers, carrying signals from one place to another. Some speed up chemical reactions, making life possible at a pace that supports living systems. You imagine proteins as tools, each crafted for a particular purpose. A hinge, a hook, a channel, a switch. None of them understand the whole body they help create. They simply perform their small, specific roles. And yet, through their cooperation, complex systems emerge. This cooperation happens everywhere at once. In your muscles, proteins slide past one another, allowing movement. In your eyes, proteins respond to light, transforming photons into signals your brain can interpret. In your blood, proteins transport oxygen, nutrients, and messages, maintaining balance without effort. No single instruction ever says, "Build a body." There is no master blueprint that describes the whole form from start to finish. Instead, the body emerges through local decisions, guided by context and timing. Cells respond to signals, follow instructions, and adjust based on what surrounds them. You may imagine early development when a body first begins to take shape. Cells divide, then divide again. At first, they are nearly identical. But slowly, subtle differences appear. Some cells receive signals that guide them toward becoming muscle, others toward nerve, others toward skin or bone. These choices are not made consciously. They arise from gradients of signals, from proximity and position. A cell does not know what the final body will look like. It only knows where it is and what messages it receives. From this limited awareness, remarkable order emerges. You let this idea settle. Nothing needs to know everything to contribute meaningfully. Cooperation does not require comprehension of the whole. It requires responsiveness and trust in the system. As development continues, tissues form. Groups of cells begin to work together, specializing further. Structures take shape. Limbs extend. Organs organize themselves in relation to one another. This happens slowly, step by step, guided by instructions that activate and deactivate at precise moments. Timing is everything here. The same gene can produce different effects depending on when it is used and where. Instructions are reused, repurposed, layered in time. This reuse is efficient and elegant. Life does not invent new instructions for every task. It adapts existing ones to new contexts. You notice how familiar this feels. In your own life, the same skills and experiences appear in different situations, creating different outcomes. Meaning changes with context, not content. The genetic code works the same way. As the body forms, feedback loops emerge. Cells communicate constantly, sending signals that adjust growth and patterning. If one area grows too quickly, signals slow it down. If another lags behind, growth is encouraged. Balance is maintained through continuous conversation. This conversation never stops. Even in adulthood, your body remains responsive. Tissues repair themselves. Bones adjust to stress. Muscles strengthen or weaken based on use. Instructions continue to flow, shaping form in response to experience. You feel a quiet awe at this adaptability. The body is not a finished object. It is an ongoing process. Instructions are not commands frozen in time. They are invitations to respond. The genetic code provides possibilities, not rigid outcomes. Environment, experience, and chance all play roles in shaping the final form. This collaboration between instruction and context allows individuality to emerge without chaos. You may feel this individuality in your own movements. No two bodies move in exactly the same way. No two nervous systems process the world identically. And yet, the underlying instructions are strikingly similar across all humans. Variation arises through expression, timing, and interaction. You imagine the body as an orchestra without a conductor. Each musician follows their own part, listening closely to those around them. No one hears the entire symphony from beginning to end. Yet music emerges, coherent and alive. This emergence is not fragile. It is robust. If something goes slightly wrong, other processes adjust. Redundancy is built into the system. Multiple pathways can achieve similar outcomes. The body does not depend on a single solution. You sense how deeply this resilience is embedded in you. It allows healing. It allows adaptation. It allows survival in changing conditions. Instructions are not brittle rules, they are flexible guides. As your thoughts slow, you feel gratitude for this quiet cooperation, for the countless interactions happening inside you without awareness, for systems that support you even when you are resting, even when you are asleep. The body you inhabit is the result of countless instructions executed patiently over time. Not all at once, not with urgency, but with care and responsiveness. Life assembles itself gently. You return again to the letters at the beginning of the journey. For simple symbols, arranged and rearranged, translated into actions, shapes, and movement. From abstraction to substance, from code to living form. And yet, even with all this care, things are not always perfect. Instructions can be disrupted. Proteins can misfold. Signals can be misread. Life anticipates this, too. It prepares systems to monitor, repair, and protect what has been built. You begin to sense that the next part of the journey lies there in how the body responds when instructions falter, when errors appear, and how resilience is woven directly into the language of life itself. As you rest inside this quiet cooperation of instructions and form, you begin to wonder how life protects what it builds, and what gentle systems stand ready when things do not unfold exactly as planned. You stay with the thought that life builds itself carefully, and gently, another realization settles in. Even with all this cooperation, all this precision, things do not always go exactly as planned. Instructions can blur. Signals can weaken. Structures can falter. And yet, life continues. Not because it avoids error, but because it is prepared for it. Inside your body, imperfection is not unexpected. It is assumed. The genetic code does not pretend that copying will always be flawless or that structures will always hold perfectly. Instead, it surrounds itself with quiet systems of care mechanisms that watch, check, and restore balance when something slips. You imagine the cell at rest, even as countless processes unfold. Among them are guardians that move slowly along the genetic strands, scanning for irregularities. They are not alarmed by small differences. They simply notice a mismatch here, a damaged section there. Their work is calm and methodical. When something feels wrong, the response is not dramatic. The damaged section is gently opened. The incorrect letter is removed. The correct one is brought in and placed carefully. The strand is resealed, restored, and allowed to rest again. This happens quietly, efficiently, without leaving a trace you would ever notice. You may find comfort in how unhurried this feels. Repair does not mean panic. It means attention. It means patience. The system trusts that most things can be fixed, and it is right most of the time. These repair mechanisms exist at many levels. Some respond to errors made during copying. Others address damage caused by the environment, by heat, radiation, or chemical stress. Life exists in a world that is not gentle, and so it carries gentleness within itself. You imagine the genetic code as a cherished text, copied many times over. Wear and tear are inevitable. Pages may smudge. Ink may fade. But careful readers preserve the meaning, restoring what can be restored, protecting what matters most. Not every error can be fixed. Life accepts this, too. Some damage accumulates over time. Some systems weaken. Aging itself is a reflection of this gradual accumulation. Over time, some systems weaken. Aging itself is a reflection of this gradual accumulation. Yet even here, resilience remains. The body adapts, compensates, redistributes effort. Nents would cause more harm than releasing them. Life understands when repair is enough and when replacement is necessary. You may sense how this mirrors emotional and physical healing. Some things can be repaired. Others must be released. Strength comes not from denial, but from discernment. The immune system joins this quiet guardianship. It watches for cells that no longer follow instructions, cells that copy incorrectly or behave unpredictably. Most of the time, it resolves these issues before you are aware they exist. Surveillance without anxiety. Protection without tension. This layered defense creates a sense of being held. Even as you sleep, even as your awareness drifts, countless systems remain attentive. Not rigid. Not aggressive. Simply present. You imagine night watch keepers moving through a peaceful city. Lamps glow softly. Doors are checked. Minor issues are addressed before they become visible problems. The city sleeps, trusting these unseen routines. Your body is such a city. Repair and resilience do not interrupt rest. They support it. Mistakes, then, are not signs of failure. They are expected parts of living systems. Life's intelligence lies not in avoiding them entirely, but in responding well when they occur. This response has been shaped by time. Systems that repaired effectively persisted. Those that did not faded away. What remains is a network of quiet solutions, layered and refined. You may notice how this reframes the idea of strength. Strength is not rigidity. It is flexibility combined with care. It is the ability to absorb disruption and return to balance. As you breathe, you feel this balance inside you. Small adjustments happening constantly. Temperature regulated. Chemicals balanced. Damaged components replaced. All without instruction from you. There is relief in this realization. You are not solely responsible for holding yourself together. You are supported by processes older than thought, systems designed to sustain life even under imperfect conditions. Some errors are not repaired because they do not need to be. They cause no harm. They simply exist, neutral variations that drift quietly through time. Life does not correct everything. It focuses on what matters. This prioritization is another form of wisdom. Energy is not wasted chasing perfection. It is directed toward maintaining function, preserving coherence, allowing continuity. You may sense how different this is from many human expectations. We often seek flawlessness. Life seeks sufficiency. It asks only, does this work well enough to continue? As your thoughts slow, this gentler standard settles into you. Enough is enough. Balance is enough. continuation is enough. Resilience, then, is not dramatic recovery. It is steady presence. It is the quiet confidence that systems are in place to respond when needed. Even now, as you rest, repair continues. Tiny damages are noticed and addressed. Proteins are replaced. Instructions are checked. The work is endless, but it is not exhausting. It is simply how life maintains itself. And yet, despite all this protection, life does not exist in isolation. The genetic code you carry is not entirely your own. It is shared, borrowed, echoed across countless forms. Resilience is strengthened not only within individuals, but across life itself. You begin to sense that this shared resilience extends outward, connecting you to other living things that use the same language, the same repair strategies, the same quiet guardianship. This thought opens gently into the next part of the journey. If the same letters, the same systems, appear again and again across life, what does that say about connection? About kinship? About how deeply intertwined living things truly are? As you rest in the feeling of being quietly protected, you begin to notice how these same resilient letters and repair systems appear far beyond you, linking your life gently to all other living forms. You begin to sense a widening of perspective, as if the quiet alphabet you have been exploring inside yourself gently loosens its boundaries. It no longer feels confined to your cells or your breath. Instead, it stretches outward, softly, without effort, touching the world beyond your skin. The same letters that hum within you are not private symbols. They are shared, generously, across all living things. You imagine a bird resting on a branch somewhere in the night. Its feathers settle, its heartbeat slows. Inside its cells, the same four letters rest in familiar patterns, pairing and unpairing, copying and repairing, just as they do in you. The bird does not know this. You do not need it to know. The connection exists without awareness, a quiet fact of reality, like gravity or starlight. You think of trees next. Deep roots press into cool soil, feeling their way around stones and water. Leaves breathe in the dark, waiting for morning. Within every trunk and twig, the same molecular language flows. The words are arranged differently, the rhythm shifted, but the alphabet remains unchanged. It is as if nature writes endless stories using the same few characters, trusting that meaning will arise from arrangement alone. As you rest with this idea, differences between living things begin to soften. A fish moving through water, a mushroom unfolding beneath fallen leaves, a human drifting towards sleep, all are composed from the same foundational letters. The vast diversity of life no longer feels like separation. It feels like variation on a shared theme, a single melody explored through countless instruments. You begin to sense a widening of perspective, as if the quiet alphabet you have been exploring inside yourself gently loosens its boundaries. It no longer feels confined to your cells or your breath. Instead, it stretches outward, softly, without effort, touching the world beyond your skin. The same letters that hum within you are not private symbols. They are shared, generously, across all living things. You imagine a bird resting on a branch somewhere in the night. Its feathers settle, its heartbeat slows. Inside its cells, the same four letters rest in familiar patterns, pairing and unpairing, copying and repairing, just as they do in you. The bird does not know this. You do not need it to know. The connection exists without awareness, a quiet fact of reality, like gravity or starlight. You think of trees next. Deep roots press into cool soil, feeling their way around stones and water. Leaves breathe in the dark, waiting for morning. Within every trunk and twig, the same molecular language flows. The words are arranged differently, the rhythm shifted, but the alphabet remains unchanged. It is as if nature writes endless stories using the same few characters, trusting that meaning will arise from arrangement alone. As you rest with this idea, differences between living things begin to soften. A fish moving through water, a mushroom unfolding beneath fallen leaves, a human drifting towards sleep, all are composed from the same foundational letters. The vast diversity of life no longer feels like separation. It feels like variation on a shared theme, a single melody explored through countless instruments. You notice how comforting this is. The world feels less crowded by strangers and more populated by distant relatives. Even the most unfamiliar creature carries a version of the same instructions you do. Beneath scales, bark, fur, or skin, the same chemical logic persists. It has been repeating itself for billions of years, patient and consistent, asking only for time and space. You imagine the earliest life, simple and fragile, floating in ancient waters. Even then, the letters are there, tentative but determined. Over generations beyond counting, they copy themselves, sometimes changing, sometimes staying the same. Those changes ripple outward, forming wings, eyes, roots, and minds. Yet the alphabet never expands. It remains modest, restrained, quietly sufficient. This restraint feels important. Life does not overwhelm itself with complexity at the foundation. Instead, it builds patiently, reusing what works, refining rather than replacing. You feel this economy of design as a kind of kindness. Nothing excessive is required to create forests, coral reefs, or you. The same few letters are trusted again and again. As your breathing stays slow, you sense how deeply this shared code connects living systems. When you eat a piece of fruit, the familiarity is literal. Your body recognizes the molecules because it has known their language forever. Digestion becomes a conversation between relatives, not an act of conquest. The boundaries between self and world blur, becoming more cooperative than defensive. You think of microbes next, countless and unseen, living on your skin and inside your gut. They, too, speak the same molecular language. They read, copy, and interpret the same letters, though their stories are shorter and simpler. Still, their presence shapes you, supports you, and keeps you alive. Even at this microscopic scale, life is collaborative. This realization brings a quiet humility. Humans are not written in a special alphabet reserved for higher beings. We are composed from the same symbols as grass and whales. Our complexity arises not from new letters, but from deeper layering, longer histories, and more intricate timing. You feel smaller in the universe, but also more included. You imagine standing beneath a night sky filled with stars. Each point of light feels distant and unreachable. Yet life on this planet shares a unity that feels just as vast. While stars burn alone, life intertwines. The letters move from organism to organism through reproduction, inheritance, and deep time, forming an unbroken chain that stretches back to the first living cell. You rest with the idea that nothing alive is truly foreign. Even creatures that frighten or confuse you carry familiar patterns at their core. Fear softens when replaced with understanding. Difference becomes variation, not threat. The shared alphabet whispers that life is experimenting, not competing, exploring what is possible with limited tools. As your mind drifts, you notice how this connection extends beyond the present moment. The letters in you are ancient. They have passed through countless bodies, environments, and eras. You are a temporary arrangement, a brief sentence in a very long book. This thought does not diminish you. It steadies you. You feel gratitude for the quiet reliability of this system. Despite extinctions, disasters, and endless change, the alphabet persists. It adapts without forgetting itself. It allows life to continue without needing constant reinvention. There is reassurance in this continuity, a sense that something fundamental remains stable beneath surface chaos. Your awareness drifts back to your own body. You feel your weight, your warmth, your breath. Inside you, the letters continue their work, unconcerned with your thoughts. They connect you to forests you have never walked through, to oceans you have never seen, to animals you will never meet. You carry them all, invisibly. The idea settles gently. Life is less about individuality than relationship. Every living thing is both distinct and deeply linked. You are not alone in your biology, not even for a moment. The same language speaks everywhere, endlessly, quietly, without needing to be heard. As sleep draws closer, the world feels softer, more unified. Boundaries fade into patterns. Differences dissolve into shared origins. And as this chapter closes, your mind begins to wonder how so much richness can arise from such elegant simplicity, inviting the final question to form. You drift toward the thought that if all life shares the same few letters, perhaps meaning itself prefers balance over excess, waiting patiently for you to notice. You have traveled far in this quiet journey. You began inside your own cells, noticing a hidden language. You followed its simple letters as they paired, folded, copied, and shaped your body. You watched how errors are expected and repaired, and how the same letters appear in every living thing. Now, as you lie here in the soft dark, you return to the question that began it all: why are 4 letters enough? At first, it might seem strange. 4 letters. That is fewer than the alphabet you learned as a child. It is fewer than the symbols you use every day to write stories or make sense of the world. How can such a small set create something as vast and complex as life? But perhaps the question itself assumes the wrong kind of abundance. We often think that more options mean more power. We assume that complexity must be built from many parts. Yet life suggests another truth: meaning can arise from limitation. The genetic code is not lacking because it is small. It is elegant because it is balanced. You imagine a poet writing with only 4 words. At first, the task seems impossible. But then you realize that limitation forces creativity. The poet explores every combination, every rhythm, every nuance. The result is not less meaningful. It is distilled, refined, and powerful. The 4 letters of the genetic code work in the same way. They do not need to be many. They need only to be consistent, reliable, and capable of pairing. The chemistry of their structure provides a natural system of rules. These rules make copying possible. They make repair possible. They make life possible. You feel a quiet respect for this simplicity. It is not accidental. It is the product of a long history of refinement. Over time, life settled into a system that works, not because it is grand, but because it is efficient. For letters provide enough variation to create everything, and not so much variation that copying becomes unstable. There is another aspect to consider: the code's ability to compress meaning. The letters form triplets, sets of 3, each representing a single instruction. This system is like a compact language. 3 letters together form a word. The words combine into sentences. The sentences become stories that build bodies and ecosystems. You might imagine the genetic code as a vast library, built from only a few basic characters. Yet the library contains endless volumes. Each book is different, each story unique. The richness does not come from the alphabet, but from arrangement, repetition, and timing. This is how life balances stability and change. The letters remain constant. Their meaning is preserved across generations. Yet their arrangements can shift, slowly, subtly, producing variation. The code is stable enough to preserve identity, flexible enough to allow diversity. You may feel a sense of calm in this balance. Life is not chaotic. It is not constantly reinventing itself. It is repeating, refining, and responding. It does not need an endless set of tools. It needs tools that work, and a system that can use them reliably. The 4 letters also provide a kind of universality. They are shared across all life on Earth. This shared language suggests a deep connection, not just in biology, but in meaning. It implies that life, in all its forms, is part of a continuous story. It is not separate chapters written in different scripts. It is one long narrative written in a consistent hand. You might wonder whether this simplicity is a limitation or a gift. If the alphabet were larger, perhaps life would be more varied, more unpredictable. But it might also be more fragile. More complex systems are often harder to maintain. Copying would become more error-prone. Repair would become more difficult. In this light, 4 letters feel like a wise compromise. They are enough to build endless forms, yet few enough to allow reliable copying and repair. Life has found a middle path. It has chosen sufficiency over excess. As your breathing becomes slower, you feel this idea settle into your body. The world no longer needs to be overwhelming. The foundations of life are not cluttered. They are simple. They are manageable. They are gentle. This simplicity extends beyond biology. It suggests a broader truth about meaning. Perhaps the most profound things are not the most complicated. Perhaps depth comes from repetition, arrangement, and care rather than from endless novelty. You think of your own life, your own thoughts, your own moments of quiet. You realize that clarity often comes when you reduce noise. When you focus on what matters. When you let the essentials speak without interruption. The genetic code does this naturally. It does not overwhelm with endless symbols. It keeps its message clear. It repeats what works. It corrects what is wrong. It allows variation without losing coherence. And even now, as you drift towards sleep, the code continues its quiet work. It does not stop when you rest. It does not need to be watched. It does not need to be praised. It simply continues, faithful to its role. The 4 letters remain steady, like a distant lighthouse. They are not loud. They are not dramatic. They are simply present. They are the foundation of all living things, from the smallest microbe to the largest whale, from the tallest tree to the breath in your lungs. In this stillness, you begin to sense that the question of why 4 letters is not really about limitation. It is about elegance, about balance, about a system that does not waste energy on complexity when simplicity will do, about a language that is enough to carry life, and nothing more. You feel yourself letting go of the need to understand everything fully. The question becomes less urgent. It becomes a soft wonder, a gentle curiosity that can rest without answers. You allow the idea to drift into the background, like a melody fading into the night. As your thoughts slow further, you realize that the story of life is not only written in 4 letters. In the rhythm of pairing, in the patience of copying, in the quiet resilience of repair, in the slow accumulation of change, and in the shared language that connects every living thing. The journey you have taken ends not with a final conclusion, but with a gentle openness. The alphabet is small, but the stories are endless. And as you fall deeper into sleep, you feel the world around you become softer, simpler, and somehow more complete.